Welcome into the Inside Scoop. Today's Sunday, January 19th, and we are live from Nashville, Tennessee. I am your host, Josh Newberg, and we are on the eve of the national championship game. Who you got? That's the question today. Who you got? I'm not necessarily like a big fan of either team here, but I do have family ties to Ohio State, so I think that's the way I'm going to lean for this game. I've also been doubting Notre Dame all season long, so why start believing at this point? Both of my parents graduated from Ohio State, so it's in my blood, I guess, a little bit. I'm not an Ohio State fan by any means, but I think I'm going to lean that direction. You guys, I'll give you my score prediction because I'm going to ask you guys for yours. So I think it's going to be an Ohio State win, 32-27, close game. So you guys, what's your score predictions? We're gonna give away something if you get it right. Maybe give something away to the winner of something. All right. Today's show is a big one. We're going to talk latest developments. We got Michigan recruiting. We got Ohio State recruiting. And we got a Notre Dame update. So a little national title flair to it in today's show. Let's get to it. Let's talk about these latest developments from over the weekend. As you know, the recruiting trail, it's starting to heat up again. It's mid-January and the coaches are on the road. So are some of these recruits. And we're going to talk about it. But first, guys, do me a favor. Hit subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel. We're trying to get this thing to 100K. I think we can do it with the help of you guys. Jump on board, hit subscribe. All right. So we're talking about the biggest developments from the weekend. So we got to start with Ty Haywood, the five-star offensive tackle. He's the only five-star available and unsigned. Remember, he was a former Alabama commitment that heading into the early period declined to sign. Well, about a week ago, Chad Simmons broke the news that he's officially back on the market, decommitted from Alabama. Not that we expected him to sign there anyway. So moving forward, the three teams that have emerged as the main teams, I don't even know. Well, one of them I think is a favorite. So it's Michigan, Texas Tech, and FSU. I think FSU is probably on the outside looking in. They do not have an available official visit for January. They are to use theirs in the summer. So unless he makes it to Tallahassee, I'm kind of skeptical that the Seminoles are really in this thing. And then you got Texas Tech. They're kind of the wild card. We had Pete Nakos on the channel last week. They're one of the biggest spenders this offseason. So does that spending mean that Ty Haywood could actually end up staying in state, attending Texas Tech? Remember, he's from Denton, Texas. But the favorite here is Michigan. I think they're far and away the favorite. Back in December, they were kind of the reason why Ty Haywood declined to sign with Alabama. He started talking to Michigan, and now I think he's currently on campus as we speak. This is Sunday morning. So maybe, I don't know. I mean, Michigan has him on campus for this official visit. They're going to try to lock him down. Now, commitment or not, it's not official until that first Wednesday in February when he can sign. Remember, the early signing period was in early December. The late signing period, I guess that's what it's called, just signing day, is the first Wednesday in February. I believe that's February 4th. Maybe check my math on that. But it's always the first Wednesday in February. So that is when Ty Haywood could potentially make it official. All right, on to Jared Curtis. He named a top 6 and 3 official visits. Those top 6. Now, Jared Curtis is from Nashville, Tennessee. He's the number 1 quarterback in the country on On3 and on the On3 industry, ranked number 1 at the position. And he named a top 6. It includes Oregon, Georgia, Alabama, South Carolina, Auburn, and Ohio State. Little surprised to see, or not to see, USC in this mix. I thought USC would at least make his top 6, but they do not. And Jared Curtis had set 3 official visits, and I think these 3 are significant. Maybe call it his unofficial top 3. It's Oregon on June 6th, Georgia on June 15th, and South Carolina on June 20th. I honestly think that maybe even in that order, that would be my 1, 2, and 3, Oregon 1, Georgia 2, maybe South Carolina 3 on that list. Just my insight. I don't, maybe he'll schedule more official visits. I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't schedule more. But as of now, those are the 3 that he has. And with that being scheduled, I don't think we'll see a commitment from Jared Curtis this spring. I mean, why would he do that? He has these officials set for June. I do think Jared Curtis will be off the board before the season starts, so there's still a bit left to this recruitment. But what do you guys think on Jared Curtis? All right, let's talk transfer portal. This is getting kind of crazy. This Xavier Lucas situation, you guys know what's going on here. between the Wisconsin DB that's trying to leave, and he's trying to go to the Miami Hurricanes, but there's an issue there. Wisconsin is saying that Miami is tampering. So Wisconsin is not letting Xavier Lucas into the portal. Now, Miami needs DBs bad. We watched last season, so we know that. But Wisconsin has not been allowing him to hit the portal. He submitted his paperwork to Wisconsin, and usually there's a 48-hour window we talk about all the time on this channel. Well, that was like 5 or 6 weeks ago. And Wisconsin is kind of putting their foot down and saying, we know that Miami tampered, so we're not letting him go. All right, well, Lucas packed his shit up and left, and reportedly he's at Miami. Yeah, he just packed up and went to Miami. He's either enrolled or enrolling very soon, and he's just going to do it his way. And I do understand tampering is bad, okay? But to go to this length for a player in the secondary, like I could understand, well, I don't even know if I'd understand if it was a quarterback. Maybe if it was a quarterback or a big-time wide receiver, we'd be hearing more about this. But Wisconsin must have some kind of evidence. And you better not be living in a glass house either, Wisconsin, because we know everybody tampers. I don't even know if there is a transfer portal, right? Hear me out. A player isn't thinking, hey, I'm going to go leave the spot I'm at and put myself in the transfer portal. Now, maybe they're getting kicked off the team or cut or whatever, but who is going in the portal without knowing your options? I mean, that's just stupid. So in reality, there is no transfer portal. It's just free agency every offseason until we get some rules in here. Everyone tampers, the coaches, the schools, the players. There really is no portal. If you're going to go in the portal, it's because you already know there's some demand for you. And how do you know? Tampering. All right, so we'll see how this situation plays out. Wisconsin versus Miami. They're all making statements. Big Ten's making statements. Wisconsin's making statements. Miami, they hired a lawyer, and they're going to battle for Xavier Lucas. We'll see what happens here. All right. Next up, a major development this weekend is DeCorian Moore. We've had enough. We get it. You're number one. You are the best. You've been the best. You've been the number one wide receiver practically this entire cycle. Stop dominating every all-star game there is. You don't have to. I mean, he was already named Under Armour MVP down in Florida. Then he goes out to the Polynesian Bowl and beat up on every All-American playing in that game. Enough. You are number one. We get it. Go to Oregon, make some more catches. I mean, save some catches for Oregon. You can't go any higher than number one, DeCorian Moore. We get it. All right, coaches on the road. Dead period in February. So the coaches are making these big visits in January for 2026. I mean, some of these 2026 prospects will be making their decisions in February, March. So some of these are going to be the last face-to-face conversations they get, and we're already seeing it. We see the helicopters taking off. Kirby Smart going to see the number one linebacker in America, Tyler Atkinson, dropping in on the Kirby copter or whatever it's called. Imagine a coach flying a helicopter coming to see you in high school. I mean, the only person that ever came to see me in high school was my mom, and it was because I left my lunch at home. But here we got head coaches out on the road, Kirby Smart, Lincoln Riley, Bill Belichick. It's January. This is what they're going to do. Those in-home visits or those in-school visits. I don't know if they're allowed in-home during the month of January, but these are vitally important because of how many prospects we see come off the board early. All right. Those are the biggest developments of the weekend. What do you guys think? Should we rank DeCorian Moore like a 6-star? What do you think is going to happen with Xavier Lucas? Where do you think Ty Haywood's going to go? And who do you think is the favorite for Jared Curtis? Let us know. Comment section below. Let's talk some Michigan recruiting as the Wolverines are entering some enemy territory. We got some Ohio State-Michigan battle lines being drawn on the recruiting trail over a few elite recruits, and I got E.J. Holland from the Wolverine. He's going to break it all down for us. Also, 5-star Ty Haywood on campus this weekend. We're going to get an update on that as well. But first, Michigan fans, these are exciting times. This offseason is going to be fun, so jump on board and hit subscribe for me. All right, let's bring in E.J. Holland from the Wolverine. Now, we're going to talk about some of these rivalry recruiting battles, but first we got to talk Ty Haywood, the lone 5-star available in the 2025 cycle, and this weekend, his official visit to Michigan. E.J., the visit just wrapping up, but what are some early returns coming out of this one?
Yeah, they're still on campus right now. Haywood got to campus Friday night, so as we are recording this on Sunday afternoon. He's still there. But I think early returns are good. I feel like, this recruitment really revolves around one key thing, and that's NIL. And Michigan has been becoming an NIL powerhouse this fall.
Yeah.
Obviously, they did really well landing Bryce Underwood, putting up a ton of backing for that and being able to flip him from LSU late in the cycle. I think some of the same people that were involved in the Bryce Underwood deal are involved in the Ty Haywood deal. And if you look back at that Bryce recruitment, it kind of started early in the fall. Michigan worked behind the scenes on Bryce Underwood. People might not be as familiar with the behind the scenes process of Ty Haywood, but Michigan's been in contact for the same amount of time. Like I said, mutual people involved in the Underwood NIL negotiations, those same people involved in the Haywood negotiations. So Michigan was working behind the scenes on Haywood already. At the same time, they were working on Bryce. Obviously, Haywood decided not to sign with Alabama during the early period. They parted ways. Haywood made that public going into his Michigan visit. And look, I've had my prediction in for Michigan since November when I knew Michigan was putting together a really strong NIL package. I visited Haywood down in the Dallas area, and you've had some other suitors come to light. Texas Tech, has been very, very active with NIL in the transfer portal and NIL in general. They're obviously in the mix here. Florida State has been willing to spend as well. They've jumped in the mix, but I don't think either of those teams are in a position to beat out Michigan from an NIL standpoint. And, other than NIL, I think this visit gave Haywood and his family an opportunity to see the program. They had never been to Michigan before. So getting to see the program, the facilities, learning a little bit more about the track record of offensive line development, which Michigan has. Sharon Moore, Michigan's head coach, was previously the offensive line coach, so he still has a heavy hand involved in that position group. And then, just the style of play in the Big Ten kind of fits Haywood, who's a very physical, dominant run blocker, finishes blocks with authority. So I think Haywood still fits Michigan, aside from just the NIL. I think from a pure scheme standpoint, what the offense does, it really fits his strengths. And I think that's why Michigan made him such a big priority and is willing to invest NIL into him. And so I think as long as Michigan, checks those final boxes, makes sure he feels comfortable and all the, fine details are in place from an NIL standpoint, I don't see Michigan losing this recruitment. I feel very confident in my prediction as this visit is wrapping up. It is the NIL era, so something could always go sideways, but, it's pretty smooth sailing for Michigan as we stand today.
All right. Well, even if he commits early, February 5th is when he can make it official. Nothing can be signed until then. So Ty Haywood, I agree with you, EJ. I think Michigan is the favorite between now and National Signing Day, so we'll just keep tracking that one. Let's talk about the Wolverines going into enemy territory. And it's because there's two top corners in the state of Ohio. You got Elbert Hill, the nation's number one corner. He's in Akron. And you got Victor Singleton, and he's the number 6 corner in the country from Toledo. Where does Michigan stand with these guys? Do they have a shot at both of them? Inside Scoop listeners, let's talk Prize Picks because I love Prize Picks. And we got the national championship. We got NFL football playoffs. It's a great time to up your Prize Picks game. Kick off your college football lineup right on Monday night with a Will Howard free square. We love Will Howard free squares. All he has to do is throw more than 0.5 passing yards and you hit. So let me know who we're playing. We're playing Will Howard on the free square, Jeremiah Smith, Riley Leonard. Let me know what your locks are. And you guys know Prize Picks, quick, easy withdrawals. It's the gameplay, the enormous selection of players and stats that makes Prize Picks the number one daily fantasy sports app. And I got a great deal for you, and here's what we're going to do. If you go to prizepicks.com/inside scoop and use promo code inside scoop, you're going to receive a guaranteed $50 once you play $5 in lineup. So hear me out. All you got to do is make a $5 bet. Whether you win or lose that bet, you have a guaranteed $50 in your account just by playing a $5 bet. And all you got to do is go to prizepicks.com/inside scoop. Go do it. Also, playoff picks. Let me know who we're rolling with for the NFL as well. I need help. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy.
Yeah, I do think they have a shot at both of them. I think Michigan fans are still scarred from a couple of cycles ago when they went after two top 100 Ohio cornerbacks in Aaron Scott and Bryce West. Both were considered Ohio State leans, but Michigan was very squarely in the picture. Both of them obviously did not side with Michigan and ended up going to Ohio State. So I think Michigan fans see Victor Singleton and Elbert Hill and they think, oh man, this might just be another Aaron Scott and Bryce West. I
Mm-hmm.
hate to keep pointing back to NIL, but Michigan didn't have the NIL backing at that time that it has now. I think that makes a big difference. I think when you have that type of backing, you have more opportunity to win tougher recruiting battles. I think these two will be tough recruiting battles, but I think this time around, Michigan can pull at least one. Now, Albert Hill is very interested. He visited in the fall. I think Michigan's right up there, along with Ohio State and Oregon and a few others. But I think Michigan probably has a better shot at Victor Singleton. He's from Toledo. Whereas Albert Hill is from Akron. So Albert's
Mm-hmm.
right in the middle of Ohio State territory. Victor's from Toledo. Toledo is closer to Ann Arbor, Michigan than it is to Columbus, Ohio.
Hmm.
So he's on campus right now, actually, as we are recording this video. He made it to multiple games in the fall. I mean, he's been very, very active visiting Michigan, being in contact with the staff. Sharon Moore visited him and Albert Hill a couple of days ago. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a better opportunity with Victor Singleton just being a little closer to Ann Arbor, having visited so many times. I think he also sees opportunity and need at the cornerback position. And I mean, just him showing up just a few days, he didn't have this visit scheduled earlier in the week. I was actually exchanging messages with him. So he
Mm-hmm.
set this visit right after Sharon Moore visited him. So I think it shows just how interested Victor Singleton is in Michigan. Now, if the Wolverines are able to get Victor Singleton, that could help with Albert Hill. They are friends. They actually visited Michigan together, not just this fall, but back last year. They camped with the Wolverines. That's where they first met, was at a Michigan camp,
Mm.
which is a pretty cool little nugget. So I do think Michigan has a legitimate shot with both, but would probably lean Singleton as the more likely of the two.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think that right now Michigan recruiting is in a little different spot than they were in that example of Ohio State recruiting that you gave us earlier. Let's end this thing on a couple flip targets. Why not? Flip targets at the linebacker position. Jordan Campbell committed to Miami and Xavier Griffin committed to USC. Michigan wants to flip them both. Can they?
Yeah, it's kind of early to be talking about flip candidates. I
Hey,
mean, it's just it's
is it though?
January. Yeah, I guess it might never be too early, but I do think Michigan has a need at linebacker this cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, they were able to land Nathaniel Wuso Boateng on National Signing Day, but that was their only real linebacker land. They also won over Chase Taylor, who is a 3-star but might project a little better as an edge. I like his upside, but I still think they need some elite guys in 26. He can't just, land Boateng. And the cycles before that, linebacker recruiting wasn't up to par either. So I think this is the cycle where Michigan's really going to invest in those high-end linebackers. And they're shooting for the stars. Like you mentioned, they're going after guys that are already committed elsewhere and are very highly rated. Both Xavier Griffin and Jordan Campbell are top 100 guys. Now, Xavier Griffin committed to USC, but has been taking some other visits, has some visits scheduled. Michigan looking to get him on campus this spring. Jordan Campbell's already been to Michigan. He actually visited in the summer. Now he's a Miami kid committed to Miami, so that's going to be tough. Miami also does a great job of playing the NIL game, but I think Michigan definitely has his attention. And it's not just those two. Brian Jean Mary, Michigan's linebackers coach, was on the road in the Southeast all week long. And he actually made his way out to Alabama to close out the week to see Shadarius Tootle, another top 100 linebacker who's committed to Auburn. They're looking to get Tootle on campus in May as well. So I think that with Brian Jean Mary, he's an interesting guy. He's an experienced recruiter. He has ties throughout the Southeast. I actually covered him during my time on the Texas beat. He's been an active recruiter in Georgia. He's originally from Florida. So I think he really prioritizes the Southeast and has good connections there. And again, as I've been saying throughout the video, he now has the NIL backing. Michigan has some cash flow that I think they can spend on important position groups, with linebacker being one of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can just kind of feel it's a new day for Michigan recruiting. So Wolverine fans, talk to EJ and I. How you guys feeling about Ty Haywood, the final remaining 5-star? And also, is this the year that Michigan goes into Ohio and grabs some of these top players? Let us know in the comment section below. Recruiting does not stop for Notre Dame as the team preps for the biggest game of the season. The coaching staff is hitting up recruits in all corners of the country. Why? Because recruiting never stops. So we got Mike Singer from BlueGold.com on this video, and we're going to break it all down. But first, Irish fans, do me a favor. Exciting times. Hit subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel. All right, let's bring in Mike Singer. Mike, coaches are prepping, but they're also recruiting. So because January is a contact period, Notre Dame is taking full advantage of it. They're out there. They're hitting the road. So before we get into some of the biggest names that they're visiting, just what's been the general reaction from top recruits on Notre Dame's season?
Yeah, they're absolutely fired up, and that's something they've been talking about with On3 Steve Wiltfong. And they're fired up, right? But I think there's the immediate impact of these 2026 recruits thinking differently about Notre Dame and putting them up there with the, your top programs, those tier 1 programs. Now Notre Dame is elevated up there because the recruits are seeing them win on the field, beating Georgia, beating Penn State, to have a chance to play in the national title game. And then I think the long-term ramifications for this, you're going to have kids growing, like, or who are growing up saying, oh yeah, like I watched Notre Dame, like winning national, or potentially winning national championships. Like, I think that this is just going to have a long-term ripple effect. Like it might be, a little too much for me to say that right now. Maybe,
it will. It definitely will.
Yeah, that's the thought right now, that this is going to have a long-term impact.
Yeah, I mean, think about some of the impressionable 15, 16-year-olds that are watching this as freshmen or sophomores in high school. I mean, they're gonna hit their recruiting process saying, I want to visit Notre Dame. I want to meet Marcus Freeman. And that's when they're going to really reap the benefits. From 2026 and beyond is when recruiting fans can start to see some of this success on the field translate to recruiting. So that being said, where are the coaches and who are some of the big names they're trying to see?
Coaches are in South Bend, but what's interesting is they got a waiver from the NCAA for a bunch of the recruiting staff to go out on the road. So the week of the Penn State game, you had guys who not even are necessarily in the football offices full time still go out on the road for recruiting for Notre Dame.
That's
so
great.
Thursday and Friday of this week, mostly in Texas and Florida. Friday will be in Pennsylvania. So you got Kobe Clapper, director of recruiting. Caleb Davis is seeing him, top 2026 prospect on Notre Dame's board at the linebacker spot. Tank King is another linebacker, 4-star from Texas, who general manager Chad Bowden is seeing Thursday. And Friday is a really big day. A lot of the recruiting office is going to be in Pennsylvania to visit with Joey O'Brien, an elite athlete who could play receiver, corner, or safety at the next level. Joey O'Brien, definitely a top of the board target for the Irish in 26.
All right. So when is Notre Dame's first big junior day? Because we're starting to hear Miami has one this weekend. Texas A&M had a big one last weekend. So Notre Dame, when do you think their first junior day will be? And also, do you get a sense that this year's turnout is going to be different because of the on-field successes?
So their junior day is 5 days after the national championship game. So not really any rest for the coaching staff and the recruiting office. So yeah, it's pretty big. We've been confirming a lot of names at Blue and Gold. Yeah. Many of whom have been, this has been scheduled for them 3-4 weeks in advance. Right. So I don't know if, they're in the national title game, let's now visit for that. I don't know if that's having any direct impact. But again, it is going to be a big weekend for the Fighting Irish. Like I said, we've been reporting about this at Blue and Gold. Kenny Ogboko is going to visit, the number 6 offensive tackle in the 2026 class, an absolutely massive target for the Fighting Irish. 5 of the 6 commits, Simeon Caldwell from Jacksonville, a big-time linebacker / safety prospect. Kenneth Goodwin, a linebacker from the West Coast. Again, you got defensive lineman Tiki Halla is a big one for Notre Dame, who they're also seeing on the road this week. He's from Texas. A lot of big targets for the Irish in 26 coming to campus this weekend.
All right, let's wrap this up.
Next weekend.
Yeah, talk to Irish fans. What is the most important positions of need for Notre Dame in this 2026 cycle?
I feel like this question, since I've been covering recruiting, and Josh, you've known me for this entire time that I've been covering recruiting. I've known you since I was a teenager doing this job. That question has changed. Like, because now you can go into the portal and you can meet needs quickly. So for me, it's more about to answer that question. What position is do you not recruit great at?
Right.
Like what
and every
is
program
that
has that position that they just can't recruit very well. Everybody does.
And for Notre Dame, it's wide receiver. They have landed nice pieces at wide receiver, but that's always my answer to that question for Notre Dame. For a while, it was corner and quarterback. I think Notre Dame has started to solve those two problems. Notre Dame's defensive backfield is incredible. The quarterback recruiting has taken an uptick under Gino Guidugli, but receiver is still a spot that Notre Dame struggles to land their top of the board guys. So, I mean, they've done well in the portal at receiver, I would say, for the 2025 season. But high school recruiting for wide receiver needs to go from, oh, yeah, it's good to great.
Yeah. All right, Notre Dame fans, talk to us. How are you guys feeling about this 2026 cycle? But more importantly, drop your score predictions in the comments section below for Monday night. Let's talk some Ohio State recruiting as the Buckeyes prepare for the national championship. We're going to take a look ahead at their incoming freshman class. And in this video, I got On3's Cody Belair here. We're going to take a look at these instant impact recruits coming out of high school. But first, Ohio State fans, do me a favor right now. Hit the subscribe button. These are exciting times for the Buckeyes. Jump on board and get subscribed. All right, let's bring in On3's Cody Belair. Cody, who do you think from this 2025 Ohio State signing class has a shot to come in and play right away?
Yeah, Josh, the Ohio State Buckeyes are a tough one. You know, they recruited such a high level and obviously have made it to the national championship at the time we record this. So the roster's loaded, which means it makes it a lot tougher for freshmen to really come in and make an impact. But with that being said, it's not impossible. I mean, look at Jeremiah Smith, who could be a first-round pick right now if you wanted to. And since we're on the topic of wide receivers, why not mention On3 outlier 5-star wide receiver Quincy Porter? I think it's quite likely that Emeka Egbuka declares for the NFL draft after the final game of the season. And yes, I know the Buckeyes recruit the hell out of the position, but they have not recruited a body type and athletic mismatch like Quincy Porter outside of Jeremiah Smith this past year. There's not another single receiver in the room that looks like these two. And yes, Porter has some more growing to do in his technique and in his route tree compared to someone like Jeremiah Smith, but the physical and athletic traits are extremely special. At 6'3 plus 210 pounds with nearly 34-inch arms, Porter is one of the most physically gifted playmakers in this entire cycle. And for another potential impact player, I'm going to go with someone who will be spending a lot of time covering Quincy Porter in practice, and that's none other than 5-star corner Devin Sanchez. The Houston native brings some absurd ball skills to the table and the ability to read opposing quarterbacks' eyes better than almost any defensive player in America. Plus, the Buckeyes are going to end up losing starters Jordan Hancock and Denzel Burke to the NFL draft, which should allow Devin Sanchez to walk in and compete for a starting role early on in his Buckeye career.
All right. Now, the Buckeyes signed a top 5 class. We talked about some instant impact guys. Now, I want to get a name from you. Maybe somebody that might not come in on day one and start or maybe even play first year, but somebody from this commit class that is going to have a great career as a Buckeye. Who you got?
Ooh, give me Riley Pettyjohn. I love the linebacker out of Texas. 6'2", 215 pounds. And this is a guy that can flat out fly. He's a 10-7 100-meter guy that plays sideline to sideline and isn't afraid to stick his head in the fan. They lose Cody Simon to the draft, and we'll wait and see on Sonny Styles. But I think Riley Pettyjohn is someone that even if he doesn't necessarily play year one, he can still get some very valuable rotational snaps and eventually becoming a starter down the line in potentially year 2 as a Buckeye.
All right, Ohio State fans, you got to be fired up about this class. Talk to Cody and I. Who do you guys like to come in and have a great career at Ohio State from this 2025 high school class? Let us know. Comment section below.